making the headlines. As always, we love it when you're a part of the conversation. So don't stay silent. Talk to us. The WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. And we're streaming live on YouTube as well. So just search for Smooth 91 FM Lagos. You can catch the live stream. You can post a comment. And don't forget to subscribe as well, so you don't miss out on all the live streams across the station. All right, our analysts this morning, AB, Bozimo, and Gbubemi joining us. Good morning, AB, and welcome.
Good morning. Great to see you. Good morning to everyone in Lagos.
Same here. Same here. All right. So we're starting off with premium times. Now, the Senate has rejected a motion that is seeking to investigate the moribund condition of the nation's refineries, despite spending trillions of naira on their maintenance. Now, this motion was moved by Karimi Steve, who is from APC Kogi State, at the plenary yesterday.
You know, to me, this is a very inauspicious start for this Senate. I'm happy that the word moribund was used in the story. When you compare moribund against billions and trillions indeed of naira that have been spent on those refineries over the past very many years, it is particularly disturbing that they would deliberately, you know, it's possible to appear like you didn't just know, but to move a motion saying we shall not investigate utter waste that has gone on for decades means that you are deliberately deciding that you shall not actually find out the cause and source, meaning you are committed to no lessons learned, meaning as time goes on, you will continue in that path of waste. Our refineries should have been operational for days and years, and then the impact of oil prices rising wouldn't have been so painful on the people. I think is the most about what it portends for the nation. If we go ahead like this, it means that every other source of national waste will not be addressed. That's the sad thing. So a senator from the APC moves it, and if it goes through with the majority, I'll just know for me that this Senate, in my view, is starting on a very poor trajectory. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you now. We did lose you for about 20 or 30 seconds, but if you could please go back, that would be well appreciated.
Apologies. I'm just saying the fact that the Senate is actively moving a motion not to probe means that the trajectory they're starting off is very negative, in my opinion. It means we don't have an opportunity to learn any lessons from the waste, the national waste that has been occurring and continues to occur. It also means that something that could have helped Nigerians in a situation where the subsidy is removed is not being addressed. So this doesn't portend very well for the Senate and also for Nigerians in the long term.
What would be the logical reason why this lawmaker would want to push for this to be in some way just ignored?
There can be no logical reason. There is no logical reason. It is an indication, in my view, that the senator in particular, and if the Senate goes with him, the entire Senate has no idea why it exists. The purpose of a thing is prone to abuse if it's not understood. They are there for oversight, among other things. If they do not perform oversight, then they are actually earning money in vain. They are carrying out their duty, in my view, as a waste of Nigeria's resources.
All right, well, let's get your thoughts. The WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981 and catch the live stream up on our YouTube as well. It's Smooth981. From Vanguard, the NLC, which the Nigeria Labour Congress, says that the recent hike in the pump price of petrol and other what it's calling perceived anti-poor policies are weapons of war against the Nigerian worker and basically the masses.
Okay, the NLC is saying different things. And it's undeniable that people are going through a lot negatively. Indeed, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics has reported that prices of all our normal commodities are skyrocketing. Poverty is knocking at more people's doors with more intensity. So this is not a good time for Nigerians. However, it is impossible to deny merits, potential merits in some of the policies pronounced by the president. So side by side, where I would hope that I would see some NLC activities in saying, if the government asserts that things like the subsidy were a scam or a fraud, then it implies that they are scammers and fraudsters. Where is the government effort in uncovering, prosecuting, and punishing said persons that were engaging in that scam? Side by side with that, I want them to talk about how to alleviate the burden on Nigerians, saying it's actually an anti-poor policy to waste money on subsidies that only reach a few fraudulent people. Rather, the monies that we heard were being saved by us not paying for subsidies for 1 month, 400 billion or so. Let's ask where it is going. 400 billion is, a bit over half of 774 local governments. How about we divide that money almost directly into each local government and see how that goes and focus on a particular segment, either health or education, or even add it to our electricity so that people can become more productive. You're the Nigerian Labour Congress. Talk about things that will allow the workers, indeed, labor and overall GDP. But if you're just pointing fingers and arguing, I think it's a little bit short-sighted on NLC. That's my perception.
All right. Let us know what your thoughts are. 0809 444 0981. Thank you, AB, for that. Now we're moving on to the next headline. This comes from Punch. Flood alert. States order evacuation as federal government issues disaster warning. Now, the state governments across the country are directing residents who are living around flood-prone areas to vacate these danger zones before it is too late. And this is coming against the backdrop of the heavy rainfall that is predicted for July this month.
Now,
good morning, Zibby. Okay, so you see, the thing with this the flood alerts is every year we get a flood alert, and I keep wondering, there's really no change. Some of these communities are constantly the same communities that are mentioned every year when we get these flood alerts. So what has been the sustainable plan to ensure that, we reduce the potential of flooding across all of these regions? Now, every year around the same period, we tell people, oh, your area is prone to flood, you need to move. But where do we expect these people to move to? It's not like everybody has like a townhouse somewhere and a village house, and then you can move from the town to the village or the village to the town when these kind of things happen. A lot of people who live around these flood-prone areas, are really not even that well to do. So ideally, where are they moving to? And then, okay, let's assume that they even move and then the flooding comes. Of course, the flooding is going to suck a lot of them out of their residences. So where do they go to from there, after the flood? So it's okay to issue the warnings, yes, but it's not just about the warnings. We need something more sustainable. We constantly can't keep talking about the potential of flooding every year and not do something to mitigate, the potential of the flooding affecting the people who live in these areas. So some of these areas, are in Kano, Plateau States, Akwa Ibom, Adamawa, Katsina, and I remember, was it about 2 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago, where almost like the whole of the North Central region down to parts of the South, with various communities were severely flooded, and that also affected farming, which also, it ended up affecting food prices across the nation. We need to think more sustainably about how we address these flooding issues. It's not enough to just issue the warnings. We need to have some sort of plan. Are we going to build dams? Are we going to increase the drainages or whatever? Are we going to get people to completely stop living along those areas because there's nothing else that we can do? We need something more sustainable and long-term to be able to address these issues and not just keep and announcing flood warnings every year.
Let's never forget that nobody knowingly lives in a floodplain. And when people find themselves there, sometimes they're some of the less desirable parts of a city. Though in other parts of the world, anywhere near water is considered premium. Here, it seems to be the opposite. So our planning authorities have responsibilities also to ensure that development is done in a controlled manner. Then there are proactive things to be done. There are canals that need to be drained. There are waterways and drains that need to be ensured. You need to ensure that they are through. And then we're evacuating to where? Like Gbubemi said, people can just get up with all they own and disappear into their country homes for the seasonal flood. This is not Aspen, Colorado, where you go for the winter and come back. This is the worst part of some of our countries. The rainy season doesn't take Nigerians by surprise. It happens every year for 63 years. It's unconscionable that up till now it's getting worse. What are we doing about dredging our waterways? Remember the horrible scenes from last year. The last president gave a 90-day deadline for a flood plan, but it was soundly, utterly, and roundly ignored because he was more or less in his lame duck session. Now the floods are coming. Okay, it's great that they're making the NIMET making the announcement. Even National Assembly is getting in on the game. Need positive, actionable steps that will lead to succor for the people. Otherwise, the floods are coming again.
Now, on Monday, we spoke to an environmental researcher on Lagos Talks, and he spoke about an agreement that Nigeria had with Cameroon to have dams on either side. And this was done way back in 1977. Took 5 years, Cameroon got their dam done, but for some reason, all these years later, Nigeria has still not got its part done around the Adamawa State area. And he says this is a major problem, a major cause of the flooding in Nigeria. So it makes you wonder, when you have a problem and a possible solution, why don't you address preventing that problem rather than trying to fix the problems and the resultant effects 40 odd years later? It's so strange. All right. Let's go on to our WhatsApp message. Ajayi says, if the 10th Assembly is to be taken seriously, the Senate must actually probe the billions spent on turnaround maintenance of these refineries to know why they're still not able to produce. And same goes for the fuel subsidy scam. Another message. This is from Daniel Okoye. All right, Daniel, I see your message. Your concern is noted. However, you do seem to have the problem, the solution, the cause, and it's all wrong, unfortunately. So yes, if you have concerns, please, thanks for letting us know. However, when you diagnose wrongly, that just throws your points all the way out of, anything that can be done. So you might want to rephrase that. All right, you're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Do stay with us. The show continues.
Oh, I see. AB has dropped off.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the internet today.
So I have my Wi-Fi and then 2 mobile networks. Wi-Fi just went off. I was busy saying hello Miriam, not knowing that I had gone off. So I switched to one of the mobile ones. It didn't even come on at all. And I had to switch to the second one that I don't really use. I had to buy data first. And then
I don't know what's going on. So, even on I don't know, it's something to do with the weather.
And it's not raining. It's not raining.
It's just so weird. Okay, AB's back.
Okay.
This is Johnny Drill, and you're listening to the Breakfast Show.
All right, we're coming back on.
You're muted.
My line dropped off. I apologize. I had to go into a new phone. Sorry.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. This is Freshly Pressed, and yes, we're looking at the news stories making the headlines. Let us know what your thoughts are. The WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981, and you can also tweet at Smooth981. We're streaming live on YouTube as well, so just search for Smooth981. You can catch the live stream and post a comment on there. This headline is coming from Punch. The NPHCDA, which is the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, has disclosed that about 189,300 children in the southwestern region of the country lacked routine immunizations this year from January up until June.
This is a major problem because when you miss the immunizations that children are supposed to have at the regular recommended intervals, you're actually storing up long-term negative health effects for them. And this can translate into learning disabilities and just a general malaise over the life of a child. This is the foundational stage of any child's life. And it just indicates that we're not giving enough attention to the health and well-being of these children. You have to understand, all our public health organizations, there can be one of two things, among others. You have situations where mothers are not properly informed or families are not properly informed, and two, difficulty getting to and from these appointments on a regular basis. So efforts, when you talk about what to do with subsidy, education, transportation, and support for families with children should be one of the priorities because, like it or not, as hackneyed as the term is, these are the future. Whoever we are neglecting now will end up not being in a position to take care of us and society later on. So there are fundamentals that every child should have right from birth and at intervals. Where this is not happening, we are missing a trick and we are actually not serving our children properly. I think the authorities in charge, having at least got these reports, should put in place plans to address it in a progressive manner. It won't happen in a day, but with proper planning and proper execution, you can first begin to minimize these numbers and ensure you don't have new numbers adding on at the end. Let's look at a time frame, anything between 6 and 12 months, by which time we should have less than 2-3% of children non-immunized. And at that point, we have to ask ourselves, why? No child of Nigerian descent or presence should lack their necessary immunizations. Lots of donor agencies give these things to us free. So we actually have no excuses whatsoever.
All right, let's move on. Thank you, AB, to Vanguard. The UNFPA says it's trained 25 police officers in Adamawa State on the protection of gender-based violence survivors during emergencies to strengthen access to justice.
Okay, so this training was organized in Adamawa State, and it is built to cover other areas along the northeast. So Yobe, Bauchi, Gombe, I think, all around that area where the incidents of insurgency have occurred, and there have been a lot of reports of gender-based violence. The training is basically to equip the police with the skills and tools to address these issues when survivors present themselves or where they come across survivors, help them provide a survivor-centered approach that's regarding how to treat and address the survivors at that time, and also to instill confidence in the people who have suffered gender-based violence. This is a welcome development. I'd like to say that this training should also, if possible, be spread across the country. Yes, incidences of gender-based violence are high along those insurgent areas, but we've also had reports in other parts of the country, even in areas where, insurgency hasn't occurred. So this is even almost akin to also having domestic violence at home, because we know that typically a lot more women are prone to gender-based violence. One of the things I'd also like to see is a situation where the police are also made aware of the importance of this, so a situation where people are confident enough to be able to approach the police. So speaking about domestic violence, sort of as an offshoot of gender-based violence, that we've had reports of people who have said, for example, that when they've been raped or harassed, they've gone to report to the police, and the police have said things like, oh, but you know him now. Oh, but he's your husband. Oh, but he's your relative. Oh, but this, oh, but that. Oh, but what were you wearing? Questions which do not address the issue and which appear to downplay the incident. So even that mindset, resetting that mindset is key to be able to addressing this issue. It's important also that, maybe there's like a points person in within the police along all the police divisions where there's constant training and reminders, where the police officers, especially the male police officers, are constantly reminded of the importance of treating this issue with the seriousness that it deserves. So this training was sponsored by the UNFPA. Would like to see a situation whereby each of the state governments or each of the state police commands see that the police is under the federal government, domesticates the training and makes it available across all of the police formations, police units across the country, so that we don't necessarily always have to depend on an international agency to come and support us in this regard. And then there should also be metrics to be able to track how the police have addressed these issues, so that we can also, so that the police force can also sort of rate their officers' responsiveness to issues that have been presented to them, and to be able to further improve the services, that the police provides to people who have been victims of gender-based violence.
Maybe, do you want to add? You're muted.
Any training, sorry about that, any training that can sensitize people further to, these issues, wherever and however they arise, is only a benefit to the larger society. Some statistics might say, while gender-based violence against women is more reported, that there's almost parity in terms of both directions, just that it tends to find that men rarely report it because of stigma. It's harder for a man to say his wife hurt or beat him. Many people just laugh in his face. But gender-based violence, either direction, is unacceptable, and there have to be measures put in place to ensure that people are highly disinclined to do it because the consequences are so severe that it's just not a thing to be done.
All right, thank you, AB. Let's go on to messages coming in via WhatsApp. Dr. I says, let's just pull that up. This report states the immunization rate is poor in the south. It's in the southeast. It's shocking, especially when child immunization is compared to the northern part. Sadly, Lagos isn't the state with the best immunization rates. For a state with a 20 million population, we should do more and go beyond media hype. And Emeka says the world has eradicated illnesses like polio, whooping cough, and yellow fever. With children missing their immunization, we could have a reemergence of these diseases if we are not careful. Joseph says, I imagine the new Senate starting on the wrong footing. Why talk about the refineries? Monies were spent, but nothing to show for it. Now the Senate says they are not going to investigate or probe. Simple conclusion is they knew it was a scam, and maybe some of them are the culprits. May God help Nigeria. 0809 444 981. That is the WhatsApp number. Let's move on to The Guardian. Telecoms investment stock hit $75.6 billion as the sector adds 10.12 trillion naira to GDP.
Now, this is a very numbers-rich story, so it's better for those who want to get into the nitty-gritty to go study it and see those numbers. Very interesting rise. You cannot overemphasize the importance of telecommunication in any sphere of society. Even in real life, communication is at the heart of making things go forward in project management and every other sphere. So to find that the telecom sector has deservedly continued galloping forward is actually very good news. Now, we're talking about regulations, we're talking about equipment. We're talking about what, if you benchmark what we get in Nigeria against what people get in some other clients, I think there's some questions to be asked, because telecoms, the investment may have been going up, but how affordable is it being for the people? You find that the plans on parity, I understand that the business environment here is very different in terms of power and logistics support for the industry, for the players. So yes, you have to cut them some slack. But I still think when you compare what you pay for and what you get here with what they do in other climes, there can be some adjustments forward. The key thing about telecoms is that it allows distance learning. It allows, of course, communication with loved ones. It permits all sorts of data to be transmitted across vast distances. So it's great to hear that that is one sector where investments keep flowing in. And why not? With a huge population of active, intelligent, dynamic people, this is one of the best markets in which to play as a telecoms business. I just want us to see better products, better pricing, and more support for the companies themselves and the companies supporting the people. Also, often you hear people subscribing for something and it gets lost in a much shorter time than could be expected, and then you have this banter back and forth. It's even the telecoms that helps us with our online banking and a lot of the services we get delivered to us online. So I'm happy to hear that the telecom sector is attracting more investment, but I'd like the conditions that the players are operating in to be improved for them. And then they, in turn, side by side with that, should give Nigerians better services. Anything short of that, then they're just making lots of money off the backs of people, and we're not getting actually the very best services. But kudos to the sector, kudos to the regulators. Let's always strive to do better.
Thank you, AB. Finally, from Punch, the Nasarawa state government has appealed to members of the Nigerian Medical Association to consider or reconsider their stance in the ongoing strike in the interest of patients in hospitals across the states.
So the doctors had earlier issued a 21-day strike, which they reduced to a 5-day strike, started yesterday and should run up until Monday. Their demands include the non-implementation of promotion for doctors and annual salary increments, non-implementation of minimum wage and consequential adjustments, non-implementation of the reviewed hazard allowance, and the accrued 17-month arrears, inadequate manpower and overwork of doctors, a high burden of taxation on doctors, and medical residency training fund payments. It's disheartening that, a state government isn't even addressing these issues at this point in time, where we have a lot of our health workers who are leaving the country. We should be focusing on efforts of keeping our health workers rather than dissuading them from staying. So already the conditions are poor. They have outstanding demands that you have not met. You have not shown any confidence. You have not inspired any confidence that you meet any of these demands. And then you expect them to call off the strike. It's to me, it's not logical. And I can imagine what the doctor-patient ratio is like up there, because it's a lot worse up country than it is, down south. So rather than appealing to them to call off their strike, I think that the government should at least begin to address some of their issues. Foreign countries are looking more attractive to health workers now. We should not be encouraging them to leave. We should look for ways to keep them. So we shouldn't even be talking about paying them all the things that they're owed. We should be talking about how to review their employment compensation to be able to retain them rather than dissuading them from staying.
All right. Well, thank you, Gbubemi, for that. We're out of time, and that means we're drawing the curtains on Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you for listening, and thanks for your messages. Special thanks to our analysts, AB and Gbubemi, for joining us on the show this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure and privilege of all mine.
Awesome. Have a brilliant day ahead. Thank you. Do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast. From 8:15, it will be time for the Grapevine.
Bye.
Bye.